This episode is titled, Classics That Should Not Be Remade. This article is written by Drew Alexander Ross. Introduction. In days where remakes, reboots, sequels, and live adaptations are common occurrences in the industry, there can be some worry over whether an old favorite should be touched. Sometimes the story that is updated for a modern audience works, but others quickly fade out of the scene. When a beloved film is mentioned in relation to a remake, reboot, sequel, or live adaptation, there is a collectively held breath over the outcome of the endeavor. Sometimes the classics shouldn't be touched. Some films were so well done the first time that they should be re-released or reintroduced rather than remodeled. Below will be a list that touches on some of the best movies over the years that were done in a way that begs future filmmakers not to attempt a remake. They set the standard for a film holding up over time and often pass by movies that have come and gone since their releases. The list.
My pity does not extend so far as to her putting a man's life at stake.
To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird, written by Harper Lee, is an American classic both as a novel and a film. The film follows a young Girl Scout in a small town of the Depression-era South while her father, lawyer Atticus Finch, defends a black man against a wrongful rape charge. The story is a masterpiece and does not need to be touched. The film also has lessons and morals that still apply today, unfortunately, without the need for a reboot.
Stop wasting my time. Because to tell you the truth, I don't give a shit.
The Theshank Redemption. One of the messages in this film is hope. It seems fitting to follow up To Kill a Mockingbird with The Theshank Redemption. This Frank Darabont film starring Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman is often considered one of the best movies ever made. It is number 1 on IMDb's top-rated movies list. The film is based on a novella by Stephen King and follows the bond two men create while in prison through common acts of decency and eventual redemption.
I don't know how to tell you this, but I gotta tell you. I'm not going to Papa's funeral.
Fences. Fences is written by August Wilson based on his play of the same name. The story follows a working-class African-American family in the 1950s as the father clashes with his family. While some films get remade every few decades, this one should not be touched. Even though the play has had different actors and actresses over its different runs, Denzel Washington and Viola Davis leave no room for necessary improvement. Back to the Future. Not all the movies that could be classified as untouchable are serious films. Back to the Future is an excellent example of a lighthearted film that would be almost impossible to remake. This film is one of the early classics in legendary director Robert Zemeckis' filmography, and it stands the test of time. The story behind the making of the film adds to the lore of this classic, and it doesn't look likely that anyone will try to remake it in the future. Jaws. Another film with an amazing backstory behind the production became a legendary film that forever changed the blockbuster. Based on Peter Benchley's novel, Jaws follows a local sheriff of a small island community as he hunts down a shark terrorizing the local waters. The film is a classic in many different ways, including storytelling and suspense. It comes up on many lists of greatest films ever made and deserves its legendary status. Amelie. Amelie is a beautiful film about a naive and innocent girl as she decides to help those around her and discovers love along the way. This gem of a movie is unique in many ways. How director Jean-Pierre Jeunet executes the film is integral to the story the movie tells. It is one of those films that is special because of all that encompasses it. It is also a perfect example of an international film that does not need an American remake. The Rocky Horror Picture Show. This movie is an example of why films should just not be remade. The original is such an out-there concept that trying to rebottle the magic that created the 1975 cult classic is futile. The film follows a newly engaged couple after their car breaks down as they seek shelter at the bizarre manor of Dr. Frankenfurter. The musical comedy is quirky and not for all, but that only adds to its brilliance and why it shouldn't be remade.
Barry, what do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life was up for 5 Academy Awards but did not win a single one. Regardless, it is still a classic and fondly remembered film. It usually plays around Christmas time, but it has a message that resonates for the entire year. James Stewart, in one of his best non-Hitchcock films, portrays a frustrated businessman who meets an angel sent from heaven to show him what life would be like if he had never existed. It's a Wonderful Life is a special film that will always be relevant.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Forrest Gump. This is another Robert Zemeckis film that makes the list. Forrest Gump won 6 Oscars, including Best Picture. Tom Hanks' Oscar-winning performance as Forrest Gump allows viewers to connect with the character and his journey across decades of American history. The morals exemplified by Gump and the characters that grow around him create a unique film that would not be able to be remade. It is one of a kind.
You seem a decent fellow. I hate to kill you. You seem a decent fellow. I hate to die.
The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride was actually remade by a number of celebrities during the pandemic. This was more out of jest and an homage to the original than a serious attempt at a remake. The original is a true fairy tale that would be hard to touch if seriously considered to be remade. The tale of true love and the adventure that surrounds it has depth and fun that does not need to be retold. The story will forever be there to all who look for it. Conclusion. While the message of this article is to highlight films that should not be touched under any circumstance, the evolution of the times is another aspect to be considered. A reboot can bring a classic tale to a modern audience. Other examples can be shows like Cobra Kai that bring a fresh perspective and revitalize an old story in a new way. The other side of the coin is that there are some examples where a classic has been updated for a modern audience that doesn't tarnish the original, but instead adds to it. The list above is there to highlight films that should be honored for their storytelling and their ability to hold up over time. So, while they may be considered for a modern adaptation, it should be on the radars of the filmmakers who would want to take on one of the movies above that they are dealing with a classic that probably shouldn't be remade. Many more films fit under this category that haven't made the list. It isn't meant to be a top 10 list, but these are solid contenders for films that shouldn't be touched. What are some of your favorite movies that you think make this list?